I've spent the last 18 months working a full-time job and studying for the ATPL Exams distance learning with Bristol Ground School. It wasn't easy, there were a lot of challenges, and sitting here now I still find it really hard to believe that I've actually got through it. So it's currently just before 12 o'clock. I'm down in Bristol and I'm about to just leave to go and take my first ever ATPL exam, which is General Navigation. It's fair to say I'm really nervous, to be honest. It's my first ATPL exam, and from today I've got 18 months to finish all 14 of them off. So we'll see how this goes. I'll let you know how I get on and speak to you guys soon. There's so many variables which come into play with these exams. Back in the early 2000s, they were paper exams. They then became digital exams and question banks started to appear. The question banks were gold dust. You could literally study a question bank and then pretty much 90% plus questions that you'd studied at home on the question banks would come up in your actual exam. However, the last few years, airlines have wanted students to have more in-depth knowledge, and they've started to put in new questions into the database. And with all these new questions, there's now a new exam style, quadrant. There are 14 exams, and you must pass all 14 exams throughout an 18-month period, and the clock starts as soon as you take your first exam. There's also 6 sittings that you have. Now this brings me on to a really important topic with the exams, and it's something you need to be aware of from the outset, and that is risk. The way that you approach the exams, you have to do it in a low-risk strategy. Arguably, if you're working full-time and you try and take all the exams in a couple of sittings, that's a high-risk strategy. High risk because you might fail 1 or 2 exams, and that isn't good, and also you might get lower grade scores. This creates problems because it's a really competitive market out there at the moment, and you have to get good grades to get a job. And the thing that I think with this is the fact that you're going to have a 30-year career if you're doing these in your 20s. So what's an extra 3 or 4 months studying the exams? Just jumped in the car to finish 2 exams, and okay, I've had radio navigation just now, which was the last exam I've taken in this module, which is alright. The other exams, I did struggle with a couple of them. Air law was pretty tricky. There was a lot of new questions in there compared to the question bank, and some of them really random, like asking about fire, crew, training and things like that, which I wasn't really expecting. So I'm really pleased to have these over. I found them harder than Module 1. I thought I'd find Module 2 easier, but really it was quite tricky. I think it's because I kind of knew what to expect this time round, and you're slowly getting through the exams, and you just want to do well, really. One of the hardest things, in fact, with the ATPL exams is just getting started. You sign up and you get all this study material, and you've just no idea how to approach it all. You're really going to be overwhelmed. Now, as I've said a few times, there's so many variables with these exams, and I don't want this video just to be my narrative. There's going to be so many people out there doing different things at different times, trying to do the exams in different ways. So what I've done is ask a few friends to send in some videos, answering some questions that hopefully is going to help you. Listen to their circumstances, how they approached it as well, and then we can all together help each other get through these exams.
So I started studying for my exams at a full-time school from November 2017 to May 2018. That was with a company called Aviation Southwest at Exeter.
I studied with L3 Airline Academy in Hamilton, New Zealand, which was quite nice actually.
I am an ATPL ground school survivor. I actually studied for my ground school exams with Bristol Ground School via distance learning. It took me just over a year, I think. So from opening the box and staring in horror at the pile of books to popping the bubble at the on the Friday of getting my last set of exam results, I think it was like a year and a week or something like that.
I studied my ATPLs at Bristol Ground School, and it was on a distance learning programme through the CTC McAlpine scheme as it was then.
So I started my ATPLs in February 2018 this year. When it came to deciding how I was going to about doing it, in the end I opted to go for the full-time ground school option.
My name's Gary, and for the last 18 months I've been a student with Bristol Ground School studying the ATPL HIR.
I did my ATPLs at Bristol Ground School, so it was distance-based learning. And while I was doing them I was working part-time, but it was only 2 shifts a week, so most of the time was spent revising.
I was not working at the time because I'm on an integrated course which is full-time, plus you don't have any spare time anyway, it's that intense.
I wasn't working originally when I started studying for my ATPLs. I was full-time studying, whether that be in my flying school or recently whilst I've been at home in my local library, at least 5 or 6 days a week.
I've been doing this part-time. I found distance learning was probably the best option for myself. I have been working full-time, I am involved in a business, and with family life, one thing and another, full-time learning just wasn't an option for me.
I was running a business, display flying. I even got married in there as well, so I mean, if I can do it, I think anyone probably can.
I initially approached the exams sequentially in my way, really. We had 7 subjects of the 14 to study, so I used to spend 1 day on each subject.
So if I was going to approach this again and start from scratch, I would approach it differently. I'd definitely start reading through all of the material and making really brief notes. Then I'd also start getting into the question bank at the same time.
Initially, I approached the exams hoping that my PPL knowledge would carry me through them effectively. I couldn't have been more wrong. The jump between the 2 levels is massive.
The PPL exams aren't the hardest to do, but the ATPL exams require a lot more studying, more commitment and a lot more hard work, so you've got to be prepared to put that in order to get out of it.
You've got to go at a pace that is suitable for you.
I initially approached the exams by trying to learn reams of information from textbooks and online sources. The more I got into doing these ATPLs, the more I realised that that's not the most effective way to study and get these done.
I studied 5 days a week from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was my ground school lectures, and then closer towards exams I do about 3 hours self-study per day extra.
What I would do is I got onto module 2 and 3, I would do a practice exam, and then at the end of it you'll see which areas you're weakest on. You should then go back to your study material and reread that.
The exam I was most worried about was general navigation. I actually delayed that exam once. However, when I sat it, I actually found it was probably one of the most easy exams that I did. And I don't know what all the stress was about actually.
The exam that I was most worried about was performance, mainly because there's so many factors and numbers that you just have to remember and when to use them. I just really struggled with it. I got through it in the end, but it was tough.
I know a few people are kind of worried about certain exams. Initially I wasn't really bothered about any in particular, but after I'd heard about the feedback I wasn't particularly looking forward to MET and Principles of Flight. MET wasn't too bad in the end, luckily.
The most fearful exams that people were consistently quite fearful of were General Nav. There was quite a lot of meaty theory in there, different types of charts and very old school methods of navigation. So that was the one that really put the fear of God in most people, and least so probably the VFR and IFR comms. That was fairly straightforward because we were flying at the time as well, so we sort of got used to that quite quickly.
Obviously maths and physics, it's an important part of it. In particular, I'd say make sure you're up to speed with changing equations around, transposing formula, that sort of thing, being able to do it quickly under pressure.
I don't think you can just use the question bank in advance. I have heard recently that the ATPL system has been changed quite a lot, that new questions have been brought in and old questions being taken out.
I think that you cannot bank and pass the exams. Although the question bank is definitely the most effective study method, it cannot be used just on its own, so it has to be supported by something else. So for me it was the ground school classes and all the other things that I was doing.
Personally, I think it's more or less impossible to just 100% question bank a subject and then go and pass it in the actual exam. Of course, there are some exceptions with the likes of air law and operational procedures where just question banking seems to be the only option at times, where there's just reams of what can seem like pointless information to go through.
Don't expect to be able to digest all the information you need to in a short space of time, because you're not. It's an overwhelming volume of information, so break it down, tackle it bit by bit. exam by exam. Don't try and take on all 14 subjects at once, because you're just going to blow your own mind.
So you've made the choice, you've decided where you're going to study, you've decided how you want to study, and you want to go and get your exams done and go and get your CPL and become a professional pilot. Fantastic. Just the main piece of advice I would give you is don't lose sight of that. Just don't forget why you're doing it. You're doing it because you want to be a better pilot, you want to be employable, you want to get a job and live your dream, or whatever it may be. Just don't ever forget why you started. There will be times during the ground school process that you'll wonder what on earth you're doing. You think you can't do it, you think it's a waste of time, you'll think you're learning stuff that you're never going to need again, but what you are giving yourself is a new ability to learn and take in information and to become more professional in your approach to life, as well as your approach to your jobs.
Do the past 100 questions before you go into the exam. By that I mean going on to ATP forum and then copy and pasting the past 100 question IDs into your question bank, and then just getting to know those questions like the back of your hand.
Go and have a look at all the companies offering ATPL syllabuses and what they can offer. Don't be too depressed if you think you understand something and yet you're still getting the questions wrong, because that's just kind of the way it is. Not only do you have to learn the subjects, you have to learn how to answer the questions as well, which was one of my biggest bugbears, to be perfectly honest.
Do a lot of research, find out what's best for you, and go to as many open days and airline pilot careers events that you can.
A really good trick was to use specific words. With the question banks, you can go into them and type in a word and ask the question bank to give you every single question to do with that word. And I had rafts of these. Again, radio navigation, you could type in just the word satellite. Meteorology, you could type in the word cloud. And this for me, I think, was invaluable, because what you have to do with the exam is understand the full structure of the exam and how it's all going to link together. And the exams as well are in a set structure, so you know that you're going to get a certain amount of questions with a certain topic.
Just find what works for you, but certainly don't allow yourself to become overwhelmed with it, because A, you probably won't do that well, and B, you'll just hate it. So just break it down, give yourself a break, and accept the fact that it is quite an overwhelming thing to have to do.
The key to success with these exams is to just knuckle down and find your own routine and find your own way of motivating yourself to just keep going, because it does come to an end. It takes a while and it feels like it won't ever stop, and you'll never be at the light at the end of the tunnel, even when you can see it. But honestly, trust me, if you just keep going and don't stop and don't let it grind you down, just keep on and on and on, you will get there and it will be worth it.
It's been a great experience. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Fortunately, I've had a good result at the end of it, but I know there's people out there that don't, so please don't underestimate the process.
They do take up a heck of a lot of time in your life, but you've got to realise that one day all these will be over and you can progress to the next stage.
Just enjoy it. If it's something that you want to do and you're driven and determined to actually get to where you want to, then you'll do well. Getting those exam results and being like, yes, I've done it, I did it. Although, to be honest, it took a very long time for it to sort of sink in that it was over. It was a good year of my life that sort of became all-encompassing.
So thanks a lot for watching the video. I really hope that now you're going to be able to go out there and just get started with the ATPL exams. Or if you're already studying for them, but this video has given you a few extra tips and tricks to get through them. Please do like the video and comment below if you have any questions. I'll happily answer them. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Thanks a lot guys, and I'll see you in the next one.